Good evening. My name is John Everyman, and I'm here to read an excerpt from a book of mine. It's a book about war, the Vietnam War to be precise. It's not a book about me, no, I'm merely a bit player, an observer in these events. It's really the story of my commanding officer, Niels Olaf, a very brave soul who led me and my comrades through no less than 3 tours of that god-awful place. I doubt if I would be here today if it wasn't for his leadership. That's kind of why I wrote a book about him. It's my meager way of saying thank you for the many times he dragged my ass out of the fire. I don't know if you follow the military news or anything, but on August the 17th last, Niels Olaf was awarded the prestigious rank of Sergeant Major in the Norwegian Army. I forgot to mention that Norway was his homeland, hence the name Niels Olaf. It's a very coveted award, and me and the other guys of our platoon, the ones who survived, couldn't be happier for him. At the same time, it's also an historic landmark. It's the first time that someone of his kind has risen so high in the army. It's not that his kind are the recipients of some previously held prejudice. It's just that no one expected Niels Olaf to be such a capable soldier and leader. I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, to be honest, but this is something that not many people know about him. The truth is that friend and former commanding officer Niels Olaf is in fact a penguin. A king penguin, to be precise. I suppose the most telling sign of this was that he was no more than 2 feet tall. Oh, and he had the appearance and gait of a land bird. Pretty obvious when you think about it. But anyway, I digress. I'm going to read you an excerpt from the book now. The name of the book is A War in Black and White, the story of Niels Olaf. Handsome Steve's head exploded before me like an overripe watermelon. What was previously the face of a man considered good-looking was now a shower of meat and brains, one that signalled to us that we had just walked into Charlie's trap. Bullets whizzed by as I hit the deck instinctively, clutching the ground and scrambling for cover. Lucky Bob was not so lucky. His body spasmed with gusto as he died standing up, bullet after bullet piercing his frame. He then fell dead, a man out of luck and life. The rest of my group had found cover and were firing blindly, but it was starting to dawn on me the VC had effectively routed us from across the river and could now take their time picking us off. We'd been caught unawares and were running about like headless chickens. Chuckles tried to run and promptly had his head blown off by a sniper. The irony of this was not lost on me. Situation was getting hopeless. I was pinned by suppressive fire, and my piece of shit M16A1 was down to its last burst. I didn't know whether to go Sundance or save the last round for myself. I wouldn't let Charlie take me alive, not after what I saw them do to the Joker. Funny thing is, with all this shit going on around me, I started doing something I hadn't done since I touched down in this malaria-ridden hell. I started praying. At that point, I was about ready to jump out and receive my bloody honourable discharge, courtesy of Ho Chi Minh. But then in the distance, I saw him coming down the river. I looked twice. Was I imagining this? No. There was Colonel-in-Chief Niels Olaf, the bravest penguin to ever fly the nest. He was resplendent, sitting atop his PBR, manning the twin .50 BMG like a glorious bird of prey. As his boat flew past me into the fray, he fixed me with a jet-black gaze and actually smiled, cigar tilting. And then he brought the thunder. Chaos filled the air like Pandora's box cast open. Niels Olaf rattled back and forth behind the giant BMG, as he rained death down on the enemy, the foliage wiped away by the sheer force of gunfire. After a minute that lasted forever, the gunfire stopped. I looked up to see Niels Olaf had abandoned the BMG and was in mid-dive into the river. There was no splash as he entered the water. He emerged on the embankment on the other side of the river less than 2 seconds later, which astounded me. I later found out that he was able to perform such a feat because penguins are really good swimmers. He managed to jump out of the water on the other side, his velocity carrying him a good 4 meters. He landed confidently on his little orange feet. He was naked, bar that he was clasping a machete in his right wing. He then disappeared into the foliage, never breaking pace for a second. Silence descended upon us. Nothing stirred but the thick smell of cordite and fear. We waited for what must have been an age. Apprehension filled our lungs. Then there was a scream in the distance, followed by another, followed by a burst of gunfire. Then a final scream, louder than all the others. Then silence again. It took us 3 minutes to muster the courage to follow Niels Olaf into the jungle, when all of a sudden he appeared behind without a sound. His black and white coat was matted with the blood of the enemy, and his machete was slick with an oily crimson red. Retrieving the dog tags of our fallen brothers, he signalled everyone to fall in. It was near nightfall, and a long trek back to base camp. Smoked fish was on the menu tonight. It was his favourite. He was mostly silent on the journey back, save for a few instances when he lit up a cigarette. Towards the end of the trek, he did say something to me, though. It was curt and offhand. He smiled. He laughed. I smiled. I lay awake that night thinking, what he said, was it a joke? Was it an observation? Maybe the insanity of the war was starting to get to him. Eventually, I decided to go to sleep and not trouble myself with what he said to me earlier, because at the end of the day it was pointless. I don't speak Penguin. That was an excerpt from the book A War in Black and White, the story of Niels Olaf, in bookstores next month. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of your evening.